Hi, boys and girls. This is Ms. Kathy. I'm so happy you've joined me today for another story just for you. When the sea split in two. The last night in Egypt was a scary one for the Israelites. Moses told them how to be safe when God's punishment came. "This is a special night for us," he said. "Each family must kill a lamb and make a special supper. A little blood from the lamb must be sprinkled onto the doorway of each house. Then God's punishment will pass over that house." Each family ate this special Passover meal standing up, with their traveling clothes and sandals on. They were ready to leave Egypt. At midnight, a terrible cry was heard from all the Egyptian homes. The oldest son in every family died, even Pharaoh's son. He called for Moses one more time. "Go," he said, "take your families and your flocks and get out of Egypt." Since all the Israelites were already dressed and ready to go, it didn't take long for them to gather and line up to begin traveling. The Egyptian people were happy to see them go. "Here, take our gold and silver jewelry," they said. "Just leave Egypt before your God destroys it." This wasn't just a small crowd getting ready to hike into the desert. Besides all the Israelites, many other slaves and even some of the Egyptians lined up to leave. Moses was leading more than 1 million people. "Look," Moses called out, "God is leading us with that tall cloud. We will follow him." God didn't lead them the shortest way back to Canaan because he knew they weren't ready to fight the Philistines who lived along that way. Instead, he led them toward the Red Sea. At night, God's cloud glowed like fire so that they had enough light to keep traveling after dark. Back in Egypt, Pharaoh had changed his mind again. "We can't let our slaves escape," he shouted to his officers. "Who will do our work?" So Pharaoh led his army of chariots after the escaping Israelites. The Israelites were camped by the Red Sea when someone spotted the Egyptian army coming after them. "We're trapped," they cried. "We can't fight those soldiers in their chariots. Moses, why did you bring us out to the desert to die?" But Moses knew that God would protect them. "Don't be afraid," he called out. "God will fight for you." As the Egyptian chariots got closer, God's angel moved the cloud of fire between the Israelites and the Egyptians. On the Egyptian side, it was so dark that the chariots couldn't move. On the other side, it gave the Israelites plenty of light. Then God told Moses, "Hold your walking stick out over the Red Sea." So Moses held out his hand, and a strong wind began to blow. While the cloud protected them, the wind blew all night, forcing the water back until the sea split in two. There was a dry path right through the sea. Moses led his people along the path with a tall wall of water on each side, held up only by God's power in the wind. When the last of the escaping Israelites were reaching the other shore, the dark cloud lifted, and the Egyptians saw the pathway through the sea. "Don't let them escape!" Pharaoh shouted as he led the chariots after them. But God was still protecting his people. He said to Moses, "Lift your hand over the sea again." When Moses lifted his hand, the wind stopped, and the tall walls of water crashed back together. The Egyptian army was destroyed. Even though Moses and the Israelites didn't know what God had planned, they did what he said. Even though they didn't understand everything, they followed him anyway. And God saved them just like he promised he would.
The story you have heard today is from the Shoebox Kids Bible Stories, written by Jerry D. Thomas and used with permission from the Pacific Press Publishing Association. If you're interested in any other books published by the Seventh-day Adventist Church, please visit AdventistBookCenter.com or call 1-800-765-6955.
This podcast is a production of the Carolina Conference of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.